Today's movie is an Apple original, but produced by A24, so you know it's going to be a banger with Apple products sprinkled throughout. One day in New York City, a lady named Sandra comes into Tom's bookstore that carries rare and used books, looking for a specific book. Tom gets it for her and starts small talk, prompting Sandra to share that she's an NYU student getting her PhD, with her thesis being Redefining Radicalism, the Rise of Black Feminism in American Literature. That's a mouthful. I'm sure he wants that for you. He asks her out to have dinner at a Japanese restaurant, but she rejects him, saying she likes being a gardening tool. Since her card isn't going through and she broke AF, he allows her to have the book and just returned to pay for it. A true simp boy. Later that day, Sandra returns to pay for the book as Tom is closing the bookstore. She admits wanting to go out with him, but panicked when he asked her out. Dining at the Japanese restaurant, Tom shares the time when he was so pressured in writing a book that he had a year-long panic attack and wrote a book so terrible that the publisher wouldn't publish it. Although he got to at least keep the advance, he says he doesn't write anymore as it happened around the time his mom died and everything got dark for him, causing him to give up. Tom continues that managing the bookstore pulled him out of his depression, and it now takes up most of his time. Sandra shares that after her parents passed when she was a kid, she and her brother went from one foster family to another. Her love for books started when they were staying with a couple who had a great collection of novels, and she read Jane Eyre. They go back to the bookstore, where Tom shows her the first edition of Jane Eyre, and they kiss. Weeks into their relationship, at Sandra's apartment, Tom awakens to Sandra closing the door on a man, blocking him from entering her apartment. After he angrily leaves, Tom asks Sandra who it was, and she tells him that her brother Jason needs money. She shares that Jason wasn't so lucky, as some of the homes he was put into were a nightmare. She adds that no matter how many times he screwed her over, she can't stop herself from helping him because he's the only family she has and she loves him. Tom celebrates his birthday at his bookstore, and Sandra meets Tom's friends. Later, when Sandra asks Tom why they never go to his apartment, he says he lives with his sick dad, who he doesn't get along with as his dad thinks he's a disappointment, and his new wife. Sandra then assures him that he's not a disappointment. One day, Tom heads to Sandra's apartment, concerned as she was not returning his text. Finding Sandra sitting quietly still, he asks her if she's okay. She shares that Jason is in debt, prompting him to get attacked and suffer 3 cracked ribs and a broken cheekbone. He was then threatened that if he can't pay $350,000 in 4 days, he will be killed. Scared that Jason's attackers will come for Sandra to collect the money, Tom offers to lend her money so she can pay them herself and prevent Jason from running away with it. Boy, if I tell you that you stupid ass fuck, don't do it. But we must allow him, otherwise we won't have a movie. When Sandra expresses her shock and disbelief that he has that much money since he is working at a bookstore and living at home, Tom clarifies that he owns the bookstore and has kept it open even though all it does is lose money. He tells her that his father is wealthy, to which she thinks that it's insane that he never mentioned it before. She refuses his offer, saying it's such a huge amount to lend a stranger, which hurts Tom, who tells her that she's the best thing that's ever happened to him. Tom gives Sandra the money and she promises to pay him back. He wishes to accompany her, but she refuses as she doesn't want him to get involved in Jason's mess. After she assures him that she'll be fine, she asks him out for dinner at the Japanese restaurant they had their first date in and tells him that dinner will be on her. She kisses him, and as they hug, Tom tells her he loves her and she apologizes for the trouble before leaving. Later that night, Tom waits for Sandra at the Japanese restaurant, but she never arrives. He runs to her apartment and knocks on her door, asking if she's okay, but she doesn't answer. He keeps banging on her door as he calls her name, but no one answers. Tom then suffers a nervous breakdown. Prior to meeting Tom, Sandra, who is actually a parolee named Sandy, met with a female parole officer named LaRusso at a bar on Christmas Eve. During her interview, LaRusso shook her down, saying she has 3 strikes in her parole agreement, prompting a wealthy man named Max, who was also in the bar and had been observing them, to intervene and pay LaRusso off with the $8,500 Rolex Submariner watch he's wearing. After LaRusso left, Max took another expensive watch from his car and gave Sandy her cut from the con. As it turns out, Max is a con artist. He took her to his apartment where he offered to let her stay in exchange for her working for him. The next morning, he gave her newspapers to read as a start of her training, as she needed to be informed and well-read so that she could lie about anything. "So you're telling me sis is stupid AF?" He then gave her the name Sandra and left. When he returned later that night, he found Sandy high in the bathroom, prompting him to evict her out of his apartment. She desperately banged on his door, begging him to take her back and promising not to do it again, and Max told her to stay clean as he needed to be able to trust her. Max trained Sandy to be extremely convincing as Sandra, repeatedly asking her about Sandra's made-up background to prevent inconsistencies. He also trained her on different quotes and how to be a good conversationalist, making her skilled in diverting conversations to prevent oversharing on her part. One night, Max took Sandy to a fancy restaurant where he ordered her to get the married man at the bar named William to take her back to his room in 40 minutes as a test run. Sandy flirted with William, introducing herself as Sandra and buying him a drink. He took her back to his hotel room, and as he came on to her, Max knocked on the door. When William opened the door, Max barged in and hysterically screamed at Sandy, accusing her of cheating on him. Sandy immediately tried to calm Max down, and as he's crying on the couch, she stopped William from calling security, saying her ex-boyfriend Jason is just hurt, but is completely harmless. She asked William to give them a few minutes, assuring him that she's going to be okay and that she'd meet him at the bar in half an hour. After he left, Max congratulated her for her quick and calm improvisation. Max went through William's stuff, taking his cash and the diamond earrings he got for his wife, and told Sandy not to feel bad for him because one can't cheat an honest man. After he made Sandy wear the earrings, they kissed. Prior to meeting Sandy, Max visited his mother, Madeline, who introduced him to her new boyfriend, billionaire Richard Hobbs, at Richard's luxurious apartment. After he coldly told Richard that he's old, Madeline pulled him to a room where she reprimanded him for being rude. Max mocked her for jumping from one relationship to another, but she told him that Richard is different and that he's a public figure, so he could just Google anything he wanted to know about him. When he asked her if he could stay with them for a while, she asked him if he's using drugs again, to which he said he's been clean for a year. She explained that he couldn't be using drugs while staying with them, prompting him to get angry and pee in a bottle, commanding her to test it to prove that he's clean. He calmed down and apologized to a crying Madeline, and she allowed him to stay with her and Richard, but only for a short time. When he leaves the room, he saw a horrified Richard and arrogantly asked him if he was enjoying the show. Richard then comforted a crying Madeline. The next morning, Max apologized to Richard for his behavior the day before. Richard invited him to a benefit gala for the Richard Hobbs Foundation, which was founded by his late wife, but Max declined, saying he'll stay in. When Richard and Madeline returned home later that night, they found NYPD Detective Collins arresting Max for soliciting drugs from an undercover police officer. As Richard was paying off Collins, Madeline realized that Max was pulling a con to have Richard pay off Collins, who was actually his friend Tipsy. "Yo, I knew brother couldn't pull it off. He don't got the pig in him." She blew their cover and told Richard to take back his money. Max and Tipsy broke character and laughed, and Madeline made Tipsy leave, threatening to call the police on him. Madeline slapped Max and tearfully reprimanded him for humiliating her in front of Richard, making him leave. Madeline later visited Max at his apartment, apologized for slapping him, and kissed him. As it turned out, Madeline and Max were lovers who were targeting Richard. Here we thought we had a sweet home Alabama cousin's wife moment. Madeline assures Max that he's not interested in wrinkly figs or looking to change senior diapers. As Richard wanted to meet with Max, Max showed up at his office, where he witnessed Richard's rocky relationship with his son, Tom. Well, we knew where this movie was going. After Tom left, Richard expressed to Max his disappointment that despite his willingness to give Tom anything he wanted, Tom asked for a signed copy of Jane Eyre and expressed that he wanted to put up a bookstore, which he decided to give to him anyway. Richard offered Max $60,000 a month to go and make a mark for himself. When Max frankly said he wanted him gone, Richard told him he wouldn't tolerate him causing anguish to Madeline. Max demanded a year's salary up front in cash, promising to disappear after he received it, and Richard immediately produced the money. Max, Madeline, and Tipsy celebrated at a bar, where Tipsy told them about another con artist named Goldie, who was looking for a con, but Max and Madeline told him that they were going on a vacation. Max gave Tipsy his share that was less than what they've agreed on, prompting Tipsy to feel like he's being conned. See, this is why you can't trust white people on anything. Our poor brother Tipsy is getting ripped off, and I just know Sandra gonna be next. When Madeline went home to get her stuff, she called Max and told him that Richard wanted to marry her, so she will be staying with him because she doesn't want to pull cons for the rest of her life. So she do want old Dick, Solomon from Third Rock from the Sun. The police Madeline had called knocked on Max's door to arrest him, and Max realized that she used him. He then escaped with the money. I just realized John Lithgow always looked old, like the man hasn't aged, but white man had always looked 60. Soon after Sandy disappears with Tom's $350,000, Richard dies because of his sickness. At the reading of the will, Richard's lawyer, David, informs Tom and Madeline that Richard left the bulk of his estate to Madeline. Madeline tells the lawyer that it's ridiculous as it should be given to Tom, but he continues that Richard was very clear and that after Tom's incident with Sandra, he a gullible mofo, leaving Tom both the business and the estate. He assures him that he will be taken care of through a trust, which will allow him to hold on to his bookstore. Tom will retain control of the Richard Hobbs Foundation as the chairman of the board, and Madeline has been named trustee, getting everything else: property, assets, shares, stocks, and the remaining $9.2 billion. She will take over if Tom fails to perform his duties. Holla at your girl, because she got that bag after having to tolerate some dusty old man's drooping bags. After David leaves, Madeline tells Tom that she'll be there for him for whatever he needs and offers that he stay with her for as long as he likes. She acts so shattered by Richard's death, but celebrates after Tom leaves. You know she's celebrating. She don't have to slobber on it, no mo. She soon spends her newly found wealth shopping for jewelry. Tom hires Pat Braddock, who is an old family friend Richard calls whenever there's anything sensitive he needs to be taken care of, to locate Sandra. Together with his associates, Mr. McCabe and Mr. Mosley, Pat shows up at the apartment and shows Tom and Madeline a photo of Sandy, informing them about Sandra Carmichael's background. He points out that she must have had accomplices, as her con was too sophisticated to do alone. Madeline convinces Tom to call off the investigation, but Pat soon finds Sandy, who now has a serious heroin addiction. Pat brings her to the apartment guest room, and after Tom talks to her, he informs Pat and Madeline that Sandy has confessed that she had a male accomplice, who's personally connected to them and has cheated her too. Tom wants Sandy to stay at the apartment as she needs a place to detox, but Madeline opposes as they can't trust her. Madeline privately speaks to Sandy, who reveals to her that Max had told her that she asked Max to con Tom so that Richard will leave his wealth to her when he dies. Sandy demands that she bring Max to her so she can confront him about abandoning her. Otherwise, she'll reveal who she is. Sandy done really fell for that average white boy. Madeline then tells Tom that she agrees to let Sandy stay. Madeline leaves Max a voicemail informing him about the situation. She grows increasingly worried with Sandy's outbursts, prompting her to leave Max more voicemails until he finally answers and she asks him to fix the situation. Madeline takes Sandy to meet Max. As Sandy confronts him, Pat, McCabe, Mosley, and Tom suddenly arrive. And looking at the trio, Pat tells Tom that his suspicions that Madeline used Max and Sandy to take his inheritance is correct. When Pat demands that Madeline return the inheritance to Tom, Madeline says it's her money and threatens to use her power to take everything away from Pat. Tom pulls out Pat's gun and points it at Sandy, angry with her deceit. He then points it at Madeline for what she's done to him and Richard. When Sandy forces the gun out of Tom's hand, Madeline picks it up and demands that Tom back off. However, Tom grabs her hand and forces her to point the gun at him and pull the trigger, resulting in his death. As Mosley calls the police to report the shooting, the shocked Madeline contests that Tom shot himself and Max supports her claim. Desperate to avoid going to jail for something she didn't do, Madeline calls David to inform him that she wants to urgently transfer all her inheritance to Richard's foundation. Pat then orders his associates to make the scene look like a robbery. After Madeline signs the papers for transfer, Pat puts Madeline, Max, and Sandy on the next plane out that's bound for Oklahoma City. On the plane, Max points out how calm Madeline is, despite losing a lot of money, prompting Madeline to reveal that she's the foundation's trustee, so since Tom is dead, she will retain control of everything. Sandy retreats to the plane's restroom, feeling sick for what happened. As Madeline wipes Tom's blood off her sleeve, she realizes that it's not blood and that Tom is still alive. She confronts Max, asking him if he conned her to get her to give away her money, but Max denies any knowledge of what just transpired. When she checks the plane's restroom, she discovers that Sandy is gone. As it turns out, after Sandy found out about Richard's death, she returned and confessed everything to Tom. She and Tom teamed up with Tipsy and Goldie, who posed as Pat Braddock, to con Madeline and Max. Tipsy, Goldie, McCabe, and Mosley meet up with Tom and Sandy at Tom's bookstore to collect their money. After the four men leave, Sandy asks Tom out for dinner at the Japanese restaurant on Mott Street, rekindling their relationship. Oh boy, this a happy ending. Tipsy finally got all the tips he deserved, and those two conners got the ultimate con. Somebody say reparations. What did you guys think of this one? I enjoyed it even though it was a little predictable.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.